I got divorced. So starting today, my kids and I are living here now. We'll be in your care. After finishing a long day, the one waiting for me when I finally opened the door at home was my sister Kate, who is 3 years older than me. Stunned and frozen in place, I watched as Kate sank deeply into the sofa as if it were her own home, her legs crossed. Behind her, several unfamiliar cardboard boxes were piled up, making the living room look like a moving site. My nephews, 8 and 10, were running around fighting over my tablet. "What are you talking about, Kate? Who said you could do this? How did you even get into my house?" My voice, barely steady, seemed to puzzle her. She tilted her head with genuine confusion. "Why would I need permission? We're family. I asked Mom and she opened the door with the spare key. We're family, aren't we?" That was when it all clicked. This wasn't just Kate acting on her own. It was a family operation, a plan to control my life behind my back. Being family doesn't give you the right to just barge into my home. "Oh, stop being so uptight. You've got money. Can't you be a little generous? I heard you're the top salesperson at work and getting huge bonuses. Isn't it your duty to help your poor divorced sister and her kids?" The word duty coming out of her mouth made my head spin. There wasn't a trace of pride in her eyes for her sister's success, only the naked greed of someone who'd found a resource to exploit. It was an ugly blend of jealousy and entitlement. "Get out, Kate. Pack your things and leave with the kids. Now." "No, I'm not leaving." Ignoring her stubbornness, I took out my phone and called our mother. After a few rings, her calm voice came through the speaker as if she already knew everything. "Hello, Nicole. Sounds like Kate and the kids arrived safely." "Mom, what's going on? Why did you let Kate into my house without asking me? You promised the spare key was for emergencies only." "But this is an emergency. Kate got divorced and has nowhere else to go. You have plenty of extra rooms, don't you? Families help each other, that's just how it is." That's just how it is. There it was again. That phrase. In their world, my hard work and privacy were things that could be trampled over, as long as it was for family. Helping someone is one thing, but moving into my house without permission is another. Why didn't you at least talk to me first? This is my home. Because you just say no, like always. You're so cold, Nicole. So selfish. Kate's going through a tough time. You've got a great job, money, and freedom. Sharing a little with your less fortunate family won't kill you. I was speechless. To them, my success, my freedom, was nothing more than a tool for their convenience. Then, from the other side of the line, my father's irritated voice cut in. "Let me talk to her." "Nicole, that's enough." His tone carried the same old, heavy authority that left no room for argument. "Kate's in trouble. It's your duty to help her. Stop complaining and take care of them. That's final." "Final? Who decided that? This isn't your house, it's mine. If you care so much, why don't you take them in?" "Watch your tone. Who do you think raised you? You can't even listen to your parents?" At that moment, something inside me snapped. Gratitude for being raised? That's not a lifetime permit to control my life. "You've always been like this." I could hear my father shouting something, but his words no longer reached me. When I was little, I'd spent months saving my allowance to buy the newest game console. But when Kate said, "I want to play too," I let her borrow it. And of course, a few days later, she broke it by accident. When I complained, my parents only said, "She didn't mean to. Let it go." My effort, my treasures, they never meant anything compared to Kate's whims or my parents' indifference. Without another word, I hung up and powered off my phone. In the living room, Kate sat there with a smug smile as if she'd already won. Seeing that expression, I made up my mind. My fight would begin from that moment on. The first call I made after that was to my cousin, Stacy. She's 5 years older than me, the only relative I truly respect. Smart, kind, and always on my side. She's the one I've often turned to when it came to Kate and my parents. "Nicole, none of this is your fault. Your family is the one that's messed up." Stacy had always been the calm, rational one, the person who grounded me when everything else spun out of control. A skilled real estate agent, she was also the one who had gone over every line of my rental contract before I signed it, making sure everything was in order. There was no one I could trust more in that situation. "Stacy? It's Nicole. I need a favor. What's wrong? You sound serious. I want to terminate my lease immediately. Can you help me with the process? I could hear her gasp softly on the other end. No wonder. Terminate immediately? You'll have to pay a penalty. What happened? Kate showed up with her kids and just moved in. Mom and Dad used the spare key to let them in. Apparently, they expect me to support her and the boys because she got divorced. What? That's unbelievable. I know. That's why I've decided to leave. It's the only way they'll ever understand. There was a mix of sympathy and quiet anger in Stacy's voice. All right, Nicole. I get it. But that apartment's under a 1-year lease, right? If you cancel early, you'll have to pay a penalty. Check the early termination clause. It should be 2 months' rent. Do you have enough saved up for that? I do. If that's the price of freedom from them, it's cheap. Stacy let out a small laugh. That's the spirit. I'll contact the management company and let them know you're terminating. I'll take care of the paperwork myself. You can count on me. Those words alone felt like a lifeline. Even if she was the only person on my side, that was enough to keep me steady. Thank you, Stacy. But I have one condition. Everything has to stay secret. No one can know until I'm gone. Of course. I'll handle everything discreetly. After thanking Stacy and hanging up the phone, my resolve became even stronger. Next, I called my supervisor, Wesley. I briefly explained the situation and asked to switch to remote work. Of course, you have my approval. With your track record, I have no concerns at all. If you need any support, don't hesitate to ask. His immediate confidence in me, despite how sudden my request was, solidified my determination. There was nothing holding me back anymore. For the next 5 days, I lived as quietly as possible, careful not to raise suspicion. I locked myself in my room, drowning out all noise with my headphones and immersing myself in work. I had all my meals delivered. I avoided Kate and the boys entirely. Every now and then, Kate would knock on my door, yelling things like, "Aren't you going to make dinner?" or "Come watch the kids for me." I ignored her every time. As far as I was concerned, she and her children no longer existed in my life. Meanwhile, Stacy and I stayed in close contact. All the paperwork for terminating the lease and paying the penalty was handled online, and Stacy acted as my representative with the property management company. All the documents have been processed. Just say the word, and we'll finalize everything. Her short message was the only light in that suffocating darkness. Then, the day came. On a quiet Saturday afternoon, Kate called through the door. "I'm taking the kids to the mall. We'll grab dinner there, so don't wait up. We'll be home late." I didn't reply. I just waited until I heard the sound of the car engine fade into the distance. The moment silence settled, I sent a single text to Stacy. It's time. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. 2 days earlier, I'd realized the perfect opportunity was coming. I'd stepped out of my room to make coffee, took off my headphones, and saw my nephews clinging to Kate, pestering her. "Mom, can we go to the cinema this weekend?" When she noticed me, her eyes lit up with opportunistic malice. "Perfect timing, Nicole. You heard them. They want to go to the cinema. Give me some money." Her entitled tone made anger rise in my throat, but then it hit me. This was it. A guaranteed way to get them out of the house for hours. Without a word, I pulled some bills, more than enough, from my wallet and handed them to her. "You can grab dinner too. That should cover it." For a moment, she looked confused at how easily I agreed, but then snatched the money with a satisfied grin. To me, this wasn't extortion. It was my final investment, the price of cutting ties with them completely and buying my freedom. And now, as planned, they are gone. 10 minutes after I sent the message, a moving truck quietly pulled up in front of the house. I'd considered donating most of my furniture to charity at first, but this time, keeping the donation service a secret wasn't an option. Since Kate had been at home constantly, arranging an in-house pickup without her noticing would have been impossible. When I told Stacy about my dilemma, she introduced me to a junk removal service, a professional crew that, for a fee, would haul away everything I no longer needed. They didn't require me to sort anything. They would take care of donations, recyclables, and literal trash, exactly as instructed. Best of all, they could do it quickly and discreetly within the few hours Kate and her kids would be gone. Thanks to the preparations I'd been making for the past 5 days, the operation went astonishingly smoothly. I gave clear instructions, and the workers moved swiftly, loading furniture and boxes with practiced efficiency. Of course, the cardboard boxes that Kate had brought remained untouched in the corner. 3 hours later, the house was nearly empty. I looked around the bare room, thanked the driver, and watched the truck pull away. Then, with a single suitcase in hand, I got into the taxi I'd booked in advance. On my phone screen glowed an already purchased electronic ticket. A one-way flight to a city on the West Coast, far enough that my family would never easily reach me. There was even a branch office of my company there. It would be my new start. As the car merged onto the highway, a massive green sign appeared overhead. Airport terminal. Departure terminal, please. I told the driver softly, then closed my eyes. After arriving at the airport and checking in without any trouble, I sat quietly, waiting for boarding. My heart was strangely calm. Kate and the boys were probably laughing somewhere in the food court inside the mall, completely unaware of what's happening. The thought made me smile. When the boarding announcement echoed through the terminal, I rose without hesitation and walked toward the gate. As the plane lifted off, the glittering lights of the East Coast city shrank beneath me. Like the fading remnants of a past I'd finally let go of. The 7-hour flight felt almost like a dream, suspended between two worlds. No messages, no calls, just silence in the sanctuary of the sky. I thought about the life ahead of me until sleep gently pulled me under. When we landed on the West Coast, the plane rolled to a stop at the gate. Once the seatbelt sign switched off, I turned off airplane mode. Immediately, the phone in my hand began to vibrate violently, flooded with dozens of missed calls and unread messages from my mother and Kate. I glanced at the screen only once before turning it off again. Then I lifted my bag, disembarked, and followed the flow of people into the terminal as if nothing had happened. Through the arrival hall, out into the cool night air, I climbed into another taxi. As the city lights of an unfamiliar skyline passed by outside the window, I finally began to feel free. But that peace didn't last long. My phone, silent until then, started buzzing again in my bag, loud and insistent. The caller ID read, Mom. So they had discovered the empty house. Kate must have gone crying to my parents, exactly as I'd expected. I took a slow, steady breath before answering. Hello, Nicole, where are you? My mother's shrill voice stabbed through the receiver. Kate came to our house. She's hysterical. She says your place is completely empty. What's going on? Explain yourself. Explain? No, you explain. You all broke into my home and tried to take over my life. I simply refused to let it happen. Refused? How ungrateful can you be? After everything we've... Her words were suddenly drowned out by a deep, furious voice. My father had taken the phone. Nicole, you come back here right now. Apologize to Kate. What you've done is a disgrace. You've betrayed your family. Betrayal? And what about giving away my home without my consent? What about never respecting my choices? Who betrayed whom, really? My calm tone only seemed to enrage him further. I could hear his ragged breathing through the line, each word trembling with anger. Finally, he said the words I had subconsciously been waiting to hear my entire life. Enough, you heartless girl. You are no longer part of this family. Do you hear me, Nicole? You're disowned. Don't you ever show your face to us again. You are no daughter of mine. The words hit with the weight of a final judgment. But there was no sorrow in me. Instead, I felt something heavy. Something that had bound me for years, finally fall away. To my father, disowning me was the greatest punishment he could imagine. But to me, it was liberation. It was permission to live my own life. Because when they called me daughter, it was never out of love. It was a word meant to bind me, to use me, a curse disguised as affection. That curse had finally been broken, by their own words. Sure. My voice was calm, almost unnervingly so, even to myself. What did you just say? My father's voice trembled through the phone. He must have expected me to cry, to beg for forgiveness. But it was far too late for that. Didn't you hear me? I said, sure, I'm no longer your daughter, so goodbye, and don't you dare contact me again. Before he could say anything else, I ended the call. I slipped my phone back into my bag just as the taxi pulled up in front of the hotel I had booked. After checking in, I made my way to my room. My heart felt astonishingly light. They had freed me with their own hands. Once inside, I placed my suitcase beside the bed and immediately opened my laptop. There was plenty to do. As a former daughter, on the screen was my financial management dashboard. The numbers staring back at me represented the wealth I had built over years of relentless effort. My salary and bonuses as a top salesperson at a major tech company. It was far more than my parents could ever imagine, a tangible proof of everything I had achieved despite being weighed down by the burden called family. Then I clicked on the Expenses tab, opening the list of automatic monthly transfers. Every cost I had carried as a dutiful daughter was recorded there in cold, exact numbers. At the top of the list, Mom and Dad, home loan support, $800, and Mom and Dad, insurance premium, $600. A few years earlier, when my father had taken early retirement due to his health and my mother had quit her part-time job, they had turned to me for help naturally, as if it were a given. "Nicole, it's such a relief that you're doing so well at work. Now we can finally feel secure," my mother had said with tears in her eyes. But even then, there had been no real gratitude, only the comfort of knowing that my success meant their future was safe. They had never asked me outright to pay for everything. By calling it support, they managed to protect their pride while subtly manipulating my guilt. And back then, still trapped in the cage of family obligation, I had accepted that role. Those payments had been withdrawn automatically from my account every month, but not anymore. The moment they disowned me, every agreement between us became void. I no longer owed them a single cent. Without hesitation, I clicked the cancel button beside each recurring transfer, one after another. Every confirmation pop-up felt like another heavy chain falling from my shoulders. Once it was all done, I took screenshots of the cancellation confirmations and saved them for legal proof, just in case. The entire process took less than 10 minutes. I closed my laptop with quiet satisfaction. For the first time in years, the endless exploitation had come to an end. My new life on the West Coast began with unexpected serenity. Thanks to Stacy, who introduced me to a trusted colleague in the area, I quickly found and signed a lease on a luxurious, fully furnished apartment overlooking the ocean. That physical distance gave me an unshakable sense of safety. No one could show up at my door unannounced ever again. At work, my new team welcomed me warmly. Wesley, my longtime manager, had called ahead to personally recommend me to the branch director. His words, "You'll be a star anywhere you go," had paved the way for my smooth transition and the team's trust. Weekends were spent exploring the city, spending time and money solely for myself. Life was peaceful, almost startlingly so, for about 6 weeks. Then the storm returned. One Monday morning, my phone began to vibrate uncontrollably. The screen was flooded with dozens of missed calls from my parents. Message after message poured in. "Nicole, something's wrong with our bank account. The mortgage payment didn't go through." "What's the meaning of this? You promised us." Apparently, the automatic payments for their mortgage and insurance had stopped, and collection notices had arrived at their house. Their panic came through the screen almost tangibly. Expressionless, I turned off all notifications and blocked both of their numbers. Then, I calmly poured myself a cup of coffee. My obligations had ended the very moment they stopped calling me their daughter. For several days, the silence held. Then came a new kind of attack, from another direction. This time, it was Kate. She had decided to use social media as her weapon in an attempt to destroy me publicly. About my cold-hearted sister, Nicole. #family betrayal, #toxic sibling. When I opened the link Stacy had sent me, I was met with a long, emotional post from Kate, complete with carefully staged photos of her tear-streaked face, playing the tragic heroine. My sister abandoned our family for money and success. After my divorce, I was left alone to raise my young children, but she threw me out of her house and stopped supporting our parents financially. She has no idea how much pain she's caused us. This is the truth about my selfish sister. The post was perfectly calculated, with photos of my young nephews placed just right to draw sympathy. The comment section was overflowing with pity for Kate and contempt for me. What a cruel sister. So money is all she cares about? Poor parents. Each faceless accusation pierced me like a blade. I bit my lip hard. My hands trembled, not just with anger, but with a faint, bitter sadness. So this is how far she would go. In the photos, my nephews were smiling innocently, unaware of how their images had been weaponized. Even their purity had become part of her arsenal. Once, long ago, I had felt something close to affection for my sister. But even that faint trace of warmth was being defiled by this post. The last fragment of mercy I'd tried to preserve for her, she had crushed it herself. Fine then. If she wanted a war, I'd give her one. I would drag the truth into the light of day. I spent hours crafting my response. Not a single emotional word. Just facts, arranged clearly and precisely. Regarding my sister Kate's post, that was the title. I began by stating the simple truth. Kate had entered my home without permission while I was away, using a spare key, and had moved in illegally. When I returned, she demanded that I take care of her and the kids. When I refused, my parents called to insult me, and finally, my father disowned me. I wrote everything in chronological order, with dates. Then I attached the decisive evidence, screenshots I had saved from when I canceled the automatic transfers to my parents. There, in black and white, was the undeniable record that I had been covering their mortgage and insurance payments. $1,400 every month, for years. I didn't cut off support, I wrote calmly. I was disowned. As a former daughter, I simply fulfilled my final obligation. At the end of my post, I added this. I didn't abandon my family. I chose to protect my own life from people who refused to respect me and saw me only as a source of money. Perhaps no one will ever fully understand the pain and conflict behind that decision. But please know this. Setting healthy boundaries is not cruelty. It is a right every person deserves. My post spread like wildfire. Public opinion flipped almost overnight. People began to see how one-sided, manipulative, and emotionally charged Kate's narrative had been, and how calm, factual, and evidence-based mine was. The truth was undeniable. Kate's social media accounts were soon flooded with comments. Liar. Shame on you. You brought this on yourself. Within days, she shut down her accounts entirely. It didn't take long for my family's finances to collapse after that. Through bits and pieces I heard from Stacy, I learned that their home had been repossessed and sold when they could no longer make the mortgage payments. My father swallowed his pride and took a night shift janitorial job. My mother picked up extra hours at the supermarket. Both of them were exhausted, struggling to survive. Kate, reluctantly, found full-time work at a call center. But lacking real-world experience, she was berated by her supervisors almost daily. They all now lived together in a cramped apartment on the outskirts of town, fighting constantly over money. "Nicole betrayed us," Kate would scream, while my father blamed my mother. "This is your fault. You've raised her wrongly." Whatever fragile bond they had left disintegrated completely. Meanwhile, my life, finally free from their grasp, began to shine again. I led a major project to success and earned an extraordinary promotion. My salary rose sharply, and with my savings, I moved out of my apartment and purchased a new condominium. My own accomplishment, built entirely by my own hands. The majestic mountain range stretching beyond my balcony felt like a reflection of my future, vast and unobstructed. Nothing stands in my way. Recently, I've started taking oil painting classes on weekends. Not for recognition, not for anyone else, but simply to fill my own heart. Freed from my family's control, I have finally begun to live my life in the truest sense. Ending a toxic relationship is not an act of cruelty. It is an act of self-preservation, a declaration of dignity. As I layered new colors onto my canvas, I made a quiet vow. This life is mine, and I will never hand it over to anyone again.